Hello everyone, this is Ira with my review of chapter 1 of Serving the Word, our book written by Eddie Sanders and Frank Dickin. Chapter 1 introduced Augustine of Hippo, who was a bishop in 395, his approach to preaching problematic passages. Bishop Augustine was a writer and one of our church fathers. He wrote 4 books on what he called unchristian doctrine. I did not attempt the Latin interpretation of that. Might have been a little bit more difficult. Anyway, his approach was that he wanted all the Christians to understand the secrets of the sacred writings. So he based his concept on love. And the authors called that charity criticism, and was the love for God and love for neighbor. That's what his concept was based on. His first book was written about the Trinity, which is the nature of God. His second, death and resurrection. And the final one was on the key doctrine of his practical theology, which was love for God and love for your neighbor. Augustine did not have a problem with accepting non-sacred sources as a way to understand the scriptures. Quote from the book says, "Let every good and true Christian understand that where truth may be found, it belongs to its master." And I totally agree. If it supports the scriptures, if it's good, it came from above. I don't see the devil giving us any good information on scriptures, ever. Anyway, okay. He encouraged the use of history, natural science, mechanical arts, dialectics, laws of inference, rules of eloquence, and rhetoric. Very interesting. Dialectics. Conflicts. Okay. 2 reasons why he felt that scripture could be misunderstood. It was perhaps the meaning was hidden by something that was unknown, or what he called ambiguous signs. And the book goes on and talks about the ambiguous signs, which is, things that we might miss, things that someone put in there that might confuse us. Anyway, the second thing is that the interpreter is unfamiliar with the meaning. Another quote from the book: "Theoretically, every difficult passage of scripture should be able to be explained with a clear passage." He believed in finding supportive scriptures for what the passage that you are studying, and it would help with the meaning. And as long as you had that and it didn't show a conflict within the Bible, you were on the right track. And of course, as long as it pointed back to the love of God and the love of neighbor. The process, 3 steps. The interpreter should gain familiarity with the text by finding an accurate version of the text. Step 1. Step 2. Find and explain the unknown signs of a passage. Look at names and nature and numbers, that type of thing. Step 3. Examine and solve its ambiguities. Avoid literal interpretations that will hinder love from being practiced. If there's no love, there is no meaning. Explain obscure passages with supporting scripture, which I've mentioned before. Now, there's some pros and cons to using his concept. The pros would be gain insight into the studied scripture. It will help with our studies, and we may gain something that would help us go forward in the studies and do a deeper study of what we're trying to explain. It helps deal with difficult passages that might be disputed. It gives a way to speak positively about a negative text. And Augustine's format works really well for the untrained Christian teacher. The cons may filter out other important meanings and themes. Although love is a very important theme for a particular scripture, though, it may not be the important theme. So sometimes it'll kind of move the importance, the thing that we're supposed to be looking at more closely, kind of out of the way. It may cause a contradiction between finding the author's intending meaning and finding an allegorical meaning. Sometimes scripture is not exactly what you read. Sometimes it points to other things and you'll have to dig deeper. There could be what the writers call a forced interpretation. The ends justify the means. Basically, that's when people take a scripture, place it where they want it, twist it to make it work, and then get it and somehow end up back over there about love of God and love of neighbor. We don't twist scripture. The rest of the book, they used Exodus 32 as an example on how to apply what Augustine taught. The conclusion based on Exodus 32 is this: saints ought to show love to God, forsake adultery, be zealous to serve God, avoid lust, and encourage more love among Christians. That's it for chapter 1. Stay tuned.